Who are the best goalkeepers in FPL so far this season? This is a little series I'm going to make across the international break to keep you covered with some FPL content. We're going to go position by position, look at the in-depth stats for each player and find out which ones are the best. So the first stat that we're going to look at for these goalkeepers is the top keepers in the league for saves. So Fotheringham comes out on top. He's made 45 saves in total across the 8 games he's played so far this season. Per 90, that equates to 5.6 saves basically per game, which is just ridiculous. He's getting, the maximum saves bonus pretty much every game he plays. Of course, he's doing that because Sheffield United are quite literally the worst defence in the league this season. So yes, he might be good for saves, but realistically, is he a great FPL option? Probably not. And we're going to get into that in a bit more detail in future stats that we go through in this video. Sarr from Wolves in second is an interesting option. I don't think Wolves look too bad defensively. He's averaging 4.5 saves per game. Neto, Areola, obviously very popular with wildcard pickers. And starting off the season at 4 million, a lot of people have him as rotation as their goalkeepers. Leno, Alisson, Vicario, Trafford, Onana and Kaminsky the top 10 keepers for saves so far this season. Let me know in the comments if you've got any of the top keepers for saves. So saves out the way, the next important stat is to see who's actually kept the most clean sheets. Obviously goalkeepers score 4 points for a clean sheet in FPL. Johnston at the moment tops the list for Crystal Palace. 4 clean sheets. There is a 6-way tie of keepers that have kept 3 clean sheets and a 3-way tie of keepers that have kept 2. But Johnston is standing out from the crowd at the moment with 4. And I'd actually say Crystal Palace as a whole look pretty damn solid defensively. They've got a really settled and decent back 4. We all know the kind of way that Roy Hodgson likes to play football. And I'd say particularly without Eze and Elise in the team at the moment, their main creators, I think Palace are going to have to focus on being really resolute defensively and hard to beat rather than a good attacking team like we saw at the back end of last season. So I do expect those clean sheets to continue for Sam Johnston. Leno, another goalkeeper scoring really highly so far this season, has 3. Same with Pope, Vicario, Sanchez, Edison and Raya. I'll talk about these guys in a bit more detail on future slides. Martinez, Onana and Turner also have 2 clean sheets. Another interesting stat to look at is goals conceded per 90. Now, David Raya this season is a little bit of an outlier. So looking at the goals conceded as a whole, he won't be fair to compare basically because he's played less games. Obviously, Ramsdale covered the first couple of games this season and then Raya started playing. So if you looked at the goals conceded in totality, it wouldn't be a fair comparison. But if you look at the stats per 90, Raya is top. 0.5 goals conceded per 90. And this is, of course, with the Man City game factored in where he, of course, kept a clean sheet. Edison is the next best. He's almost basically twice as many goals conceded per 90 as Raya on 0.8. Johnston and Sanchez both on 0.9. Ramsdale obviously been phased out of the Arsenal team now on 1. Vicario also on 1. Pope on 1.1 and Alisson on 1.1 as well. Turner and Flecken on 1.3 and 1.4. How do I find who are the best goalkeepers now? We've got some good stats where you can both compare the quality of the defences that they play for and of course the volume of saves that they're making. If we look back to the total saves, there's 1 goalkeeper so far that appears on the top defences list and the top saves list, and that is Vicario of Spurs. Next up, we're going to look at saves percentage. Now, this is the number of savable shots on target that a goalkeeper faces and the percentage of them that he saves. And Vicario is top, 82.9% saves percentage, which is really, really high. I don't think there was a goalkeeper last season in the Prem that was getting to quite those numbers. I think even David De Gea in his top form wasn't anywhere near this either. 82.9 is very, very elite. Johnston, 81.5, very close again. Both of these keepers are playing really, really well at the moment. Sanchez, again, he's been putting in some really good performances for Chelsea as well. It's just a shame their fixtures coming up are quite tough. Leno, Alisson, Areola in and around 75-76% saves percentage. Jose Sarr and Turner both in and around 72. Raya 71.4 and Neto of Bournemouth 68.6. Now, obviously, points mean prizes in FPL. I've looked at all the underlying stats, but you can't ignore the total points these players have scored so far. Johnston and Leno are the 2 top joint scoring goalkeepers, 38 points each. Vicario on 36, Sanchez 35, Areola 33, Jose Sarr 29, Neto and Alisson and Pope all tied on 28 points, with Ederson on 27. One thing I'm not going to do with this video is suggest that each player is perfect and that each of them doesn't have a downside, because some of them do, unfortunately. Sam Johnston, I think he's playing so well that even though Henderson is in the Crystal Palace squad, when he gets back fit with that 81.5% saves percentage that he's pulling up, I think he's just playing too well to be dropped. Obviously, that's the downside to Sam Johnston. You know, they've signed a quality keeper in Dean Henderson, so he does provide competition for the spot. And looking at the next couple of fixtures for Crystal Palace, Newcastle away, Spurs at home, you could conceivably expect them to concede. However, with the fact he's making 2.5 saves per 90, I'm not sure they're ever going to get sort of blown away by a team how well they are playing defensively, Crystal Palace. So I wouldn't expect him to get too many minus points for goals conceded, and I would expect him to get saves bonus. So even with tough fixtures coming up, I'd still expect him to come out of those, you know, with some points. And for me, 4.5, 4.6-ish million keepers, Johnston is the best. Next up is a keeper I really wish I went with on my wildcard, and that's David Raya. I was just a little bit sceptical. Of course, he has Ramsdale as competition, right? So if he makes, you know, a couple of mistakes in 2 games running, for example, there is, of course, a chance that Ramsdale comes in and starts playing the goalkeeper position again. But, you know, Mikel Arteta was waxing lyrical about David Raya after the Man City game, despite him not making any mistakes that gave away goals, but he definitely did make some risky plays. But it looked like Mikel Arteta actually really liked that and commended the goalkeeper for doing so. I would say of the best sort of defensive teams in the league, you know, the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea even, and of course Arsenal. I think Arsenal are probably the best defence in the league now. Those sort of premium tier goalkeepers, you can probably take Chelsea off that list to be fair. David Raya is the cheapest of all of them. And I think he's probably the best of all of them as well, because he's got slightly better saves per 90, I think, than Ederson does. And he offers slightly better defence based on what we've seen so far. So, yeah, of those premium tier goalkeepers, I really like David Raya. And finally, I probably gave it away a little bit earlier when going through all the stats, but it's hard to ignore how good Vicario has been for Spurs. He's got the #1 saves percentage in the league across all goalkeepers. I'd say Tottenham are looking much, much better defensively with Romero and Van der Ven playing that centre-back partnership. I think the two of them complement each other really well. Tottenham have some really nice upcoming fixtures as well. Fulham, Crystal Palace, you know, conceivably keep clean sheets in them. I think the Chelsea will be a cagey game, as Chelsea usually do against the top teams. It usually ends a low-scoring draw, so, you know, could well be 0-0 in that game. And then Wolves and Aston Villa after that, like, maybe the Aston Villa game is probably the toughest one of that lot, to be honest, but you could easily see 2 or 3 clean sheets from that next lot from Spurs. And he's making 3.62 saves per game. So not only are they good defensively, he's making a good number of saves as well. The only downside to Vicario, Spurs are the best team in the league for open play goals at the moment, or open play expected goals. So realistically, people are going to try and big up on the, you know, the likes of Pedro Porro, Udogie, and obviously Son and Maddison, maybe Richarlison as well. So he takes up, Vicario does, a valuable Spurs position. But if you've only doubled up on Spurs so far, Vicario, I think, is the best goalkeeper in the game. Alright, and that's the end of the video. A little bit different from my usual ones. Obviously, we're in international break, so there's not a whole lot of football to talk about. But I think we're at a point in time now where we've got a reasonable sample size of data where we can really start comparing players. And I wanted to start with the goalkeepers. I was using my orange while I was talking then to help me think about what I was going to say. So yeah, the orange of truth helped me with that video. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like rating and subscribe to the Goal and Goal channel, which should be just there. And I'll catch you in my Defenders video.